Good afternoon or good morning because it's 11 a.m. So good
Good
morning,
morning.
everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'm so excited about this interview today. I guess I'm even more excited that I can officially say the Black intellectualism movement is back. And it kind of happened really unexpectedly. I had the opportunity to present some very important conversations a couple of weeks ago. And I'm still working on sharing some of the clips from that great conversation with our state NAACP vice president. But I had the opportunity to share some great conversations with him online and decided that it was definitely time for us to stop delaying and bringing the conversation back. I realize that there's a little kickback, Margot.
Oh yeah.
We may not
Um,
be able to do what we're trying to do, but there is some kickback. So I'm really excited about the chance to bring the Black intellectualism movement back, especially right now at a time when we're seeing so many changes happening globally, but in particular, a shift in how we get to publicly address conversations and issues that directly impact our community. So the mission of this platform is really to connect people with those who work in the professional realm who represent our lived experiences and offer a vast range of information to help us guide and to help guide us along this life journey and to provide information and resources that we really believe can be transformational. I still have some kickback, Marco. Is that me? Do you think if you turn it down, will it break
I
up?
put mine
Maybe
on
some
mute
kickback
for
people.
Instagram. I don't
Well,
know
I
if
don't
that
know. It may
helped.
just be a little kickback today then.
Uh-oh. I don't know. I don't know.
So I want to invite you all to please, please, please share this video, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. Please hit share. Send this to your friends. Send this to your family. We are in for a really exciting conversation today. It is National Novel Writing Month, one of my favorite times of the year, and not just because November is also my birthday, but because you all also know that my first passion, I love my work in education, I love community advocacy, but I always share with people that the reason I discovered so much about these other areas I'm passionate about is because of the passion I have for writing. And so I'm very excited to be here today with one of the most amazing women writers in the world, and that is Margeaux Weston. So, just to give you a little bit of background on Margot, we have a very long friendship history. We go all the way back to our days at LSU, which
Same.
then now looks like over 20 years ago.
Don't tell people that.
I know. Time flies, girl. Over
Yeah,
20
it does.
years ago, we were enrolled in students at LSU, as students at LSU. We were pursuing the same major, which was a bachelor's of arts in English. And I remember that Margot and I took a class together, and she was just so nice, but she was also so witty, and I just loved her energy. And she
Oh.
was also a little bit quiet. And I tend to cling to quiet people because I talk so much. They really help to kind of calm my spirit. So I really did cling to Margot, really, became friends and built a relationship from there. And here we are 20 something years later, still good friends, still growing and blooming, but even more so, um, we have just been able to grow a friendship based
Yeah.
on not only what we do as writers, but on sisterhood, genuine love for each other, having the same morals and beliefs in many cases, and just being able to feed each other spiritually, physically, in life lessons, and just growing together. So It's been an amazing life journey to know her. Margot has had such an amazing journey. And it's so interesting because every day I'm learning more and more and more about her. And I'm always like, Margot, you didn't tell me you did that. Margot, you didn't tell me that story before. And I think that's the really amazing thing about her is that she has so much knowledge, so much insight. She's so wise. But there's so many layers of her life journey that are enjoyable, and I couldn't wait to bring her onto the live stream. And I think that what is most exciting too is that if you are tuning in from anywhere in Northeast Louisiana, her roots go back to Northeast Louisiana. She was originally born in Bastrop and then became a transplant down to South Louisiana, where she spent most of her childhood. But she still talks about the fact that her family is very present in this region and that those are where her roots come from. And she bears a very close connection to her family. And so I think that that's always very important that we talk about Louisiana writers and where we
Mhm.
come from, but in particular, this other connection I feel we share here in Northeast Louisiana. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna be done with running my mouth because we have some great questions to answer, and I want to hold space. I don't want to hold Margot back from talking, but welcome, Margot, and we are so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I wasn't expecting that. It's nice to be in conversation with someone who really knows you, like for years. So I wasn't expecting that. I really appreciate your kind words. I have so much to say, but then it's like I wasn't prepared for that. So I'm kind of, Jamie knows that I'm kind of shy sometimes. But yeah, I appreciate it. And on our writing journey and also our mama journey, our sisterhood journey, just so many things that we have in common. I'm grateful to know you and also to be I would say mentored, because I know we've talked about mentorship and everything else, but Jamie has really encouraged me throughout the years to kind of talk. I kind of am I would love to be a recluse and just sit in my room
If you
and
would.
right. And Jamie, thank you so much for encouraging me to kind of open up and talk.
I would say this. I think that we have been co-mentors to each other, and I think that's the art of real sisterhood.
Mhm.
I'm writing a blog about that now, like really understanding the beauty of sisterhood, because
Yeah.
I think we have been co-mentors for each other, and I share very openly with people that when I had to leave the classroom and I was very devastated, I was very
Mm.
traumatized, I was scared. It was you who said to me on the phone that day, and it hit differently. No matter, other people were also encouraging and they were supportive, but it hit differently because of how scary we've been taught to be about the taking the leap to
Mhm.
become a professional writer and to work in the writing industry. But I'll never forget you saying to me that day, this is it. You're not going back. You've been talking about following your dreams. You've been writing work. You have this big portfolio of writing you do, and this is it. You're not going back. We will figure this out. And really just letting me know in that moment that leaping out into this journey, I was not alone. And
Yeah.
that I had somebody beside me. And not only did you do that, okay, I'm trying not to start crying this early in the conversation, friend. I was going to save this for later. Not only did you do that, you then subcontracted me to work on those translated books, which was a different realm for me. And I was really excited about it because I still get to brag to people that I've edited books internationally. You
Mhm.
added something to my resume that was a real game changer, but you also said, not only am I telling you you can do it, I have the ability to pave a way for you, and I'm going to do that. And it was an uplift like never before. It was a game changer. It was how I was able to keep food on my table financially for me and my son. And you know that because I was not getting paid. I was
Yeah.
struggling. And so you like I cannot explain what that was for me. The way that you literally said, I'm not just offering you words, sis. I have the ability. You could have kept that capital for yourself. And you said, I have your back. Let me make sure that my friend, who is also a mom, who is launching out into this realm, let me give you a leg up and help you keep food on your table. And you are forever my friend and sister, and I love you. And you are a phenomenal woman. And I just know that because of that alone, for me, in my lens, through my lens, you deserve so many amazing things. But in addition to that, you are an
Oh,
amazing
T.
writer and an amazing talent to the
Thank
writing
you.
industry. And I share with you all the time the hope that we will be the elevated voices of literature for our state. But you
Ooh,
truly
yes.
embodied to me like everything that I see our legacy of amazing writers that they are in terms of wisdom, even the quietness of you, because you think so much, you're processing, you're developing all of those things. You are so amazing, and you've taught me so much about calmness and peace and to be okay and to navigate and to flip. And I really, really love you for that. And I think I've said it a little bit before, but I want to express it very publicly today how much I admire the phenomenal woman that you are. So, um,
Thank you so much. I'm like, whew, thank you so much. And again, the feeling is mutual. I'm just kind of shy. I got to get my words together, but the feeling is mutual. Just the love and respect, the admiration, everything. I appreciate you.
and Margot is much shyer, you guys. So I don't look, but I promise you, if you want to meet somebody that is funny, I'm gonna stop talking now so you all can get the dose that you deserve, and you get to see her for free now because when she's doing lectures one day, okay, there will be limited seating, and you might have to buy tickets. So I wanted to start off by asking, and I'm going to separate it from the camera for just a quick minute. I want to turn off my air conditioner. That's it. But I'm going to pose the question and leave for just a second. When did you first realize that you wanted to work in the writing and media industry? When did you?
Yeah. Um. Oh. Uh-oh. Are we still here? Let's see. Um. Jamie says she's coming right back, so I think she's coming right back. Um. I'll hold on for a second to see if she comes right back.
Oh, okay. It removed me. I'm sorry, Margot. Okay, go
Uh
ahead.
oh. Um.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. So no, that's okay. So the question was, when did I decide I wanted to work in writing and media?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I think I've always really gravitated toward media. I wanted to work in film, and I did, not necessarily in the capacity I wanted to. I would say since I was a little girl, I wanted to I was first fascinated with music videos. Y'all remember, I don't know how old everyone is, but like, Thriller, and one that stands out to me is Madonna's Like a Prayer. I know, I don't know why, but like that was like the first video I watched, and I said I could, and I knew that it was a music video, and I was thinking like, how do they do that? How did they? I think it was really interesting because he was supposed to be like a saint. It was just like this really taboo video. So I knew that I wanted to do something in that realm. And as I got older and writing short stories and drawing, because I used to draw a lot, um, that's kind of when I decided, when I was a little person, that I wanted to tell stories. And I didn't know how I was going to tell stories, but different things happened in life. But it started at an early age, just reading a lot, listening to the elders. I was fortunate to grow up with a lot of older people. Um, and so that just, in the way that older people tell stories, our elders tell amazing, rich
Yeah.
stories. um and I wanted to do that. So that's kind of when I knew, when I was younger, even though, that's not, I took it the long way around, but I got back to where I needed to be, I guess.
I think that's the interesting part when you said I took the long way around,
Hmm.
but I got back to where I needed to be. I think that's also a story that the two of us share. as well about how we ended up ultimately coming back to that thing that was our greatest passion. So I wanted you to share a little bit about what career path did you take to get here, and when you think back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Um, ooh, the path. So Jamie and I met at LSU, and while I was at LSU, um, I worked on films in the Baton Rouge area. That was the time whenever it was like a big boom in Louisiana. The film industry was booming. They had like programs. And one of my friends um, told me about a film program, a film production program. So that's kind of how I got involved in working on films and becoming like a production assistant, producer's assistant. And that graduated from college, I went on to Shreveport and I worked on a film called Soul Men for a little while before moving to Dallas.
What?
Yeah, yeah, I was I forgot what I was on there, a PA or a secretary or something.
See what I mean
Um
when I told you all I'm always learning something new?
it's so it all seems so like far away sometimes, but yeah, and then I moved to Dallas and I did all of that. But my goal was to, script write, and I applied for all of these things in LA, and it just didn't happen. I always felt like I was like one step away from it. Like I just needed somebody to open that door. But I think that I wasn't supposed to be in LA at that time, obviously.
Mhm.
And then, moving back from Texas to South Louisiana, um, I ooh, I feel like I'm missing something. I'm trying to give everything, but I taught too. So I taught because, when you have a degree in English, most people think that you want to teach, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It was what it was. And I would tell you, my first year of teaching, those were the most amazing kids I have ever had in my life, and those were elementary kids. I would say when I taught my first high school group of kids were also amazing. They're grown up now, too. But I just really I had some amazing kids the first few years of the first few years of teaching. And then in while I was teaching and making a way, because by that time I was a single mom. So you do what you have to do, right? I had the English background. I got certified and everything else. It was kind of, I don't want to say easy. It was something that kind of laid out and the bricks were there. I didn't have to go
Mhm.
and start paving things, but it
Mhm.
wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I freelanced on the side. I wrote articles for different media because I said I wanted to write articles. Um, so that's how we got here. And in 2016, I started working in publishing, and it just so happened that I just asked. I also want to say, because I hope I'm not being linear, but I need to be linear. I want to say that in 2020, this is where the big shift happened, and this is something I want to say to people who want to work in publishing. When there's an opportunity, you have to take that opportunity because it's such a closed system to work
Yeah.
in publishing that you may never get the opportunity. Um, so in 2020, when publishing said we want to have more people of color, Black people, this was after George Floyd. Y'all know what it was in 2020. That's when publishing opened its doors and said we need to hire more editors. So I was right at the door. I just needed, like I said before, I just needed somebody to open the door,
Absolutely.
and then that was it. And so that's kind of how I got into the traditional publishing, working with big five publishers and editing those types of books because I was just waiting at the door. So that was the big shift in 2020, and then I was able to um pursue this full time and stop teaching.
So I kind of wanted you to also share because I love it. Able to pursue it full time and stop teaching. I would like for you to share a little bit about what all you do because that's always the interesting part as well. Writing, because being a writer is a very interesting field because I know that we live in a very saturated market. with things. So modeling that pathway can be unique, especially whenever you have a career path that is dedicated to the writing industry and whatever mediums you may do it. And so we're going to circle back around to some of those conversation pieces, but what all services do you provide as a writer? Because I think sometimes when people hear writer, they think we only write articles or we only write books. Like whatever you do is just that one medium, but there are so many
Yeah.
different branches of the career journey. So what all do you do, or and what have you?
Um, well, I will say this. Um, as a writer, I started off um, with for hire projects. So what that means is that like that's a contracted position to where like there's a calendar somewhere with Ebony or like Black History. I can't remember what it is. And those bios of certain Black History people, I wrote those. So that's those for hire positions were contracted work for calendars, for like maybe journals or something like that, that they needed someone to come in and do. So that's how I got my foot in as a writer in the industry. It's doing that. And once I had that in about 2021 or 2022, ooh, it is almost 2026. But maybe a year or so after that, I was looking for an agent because I wanted to write stories. And I know we could talk about the that's kind of different. But as a writer, there's so many things you can do. You can, be a technical writer. At one point in time, I was a technical writer. I have done some things. I worked for Microsoft, and there was Texas Instruments too, on a contractual basis, but I did technical writing too. So I have always wanted to find a way to write or tell stories in some kind of way.
I
But
love it.
you can do the technical route, you can freelance, you could do for hire writing, and then of course you can write your own stories and sell your own stories too. But as a writer, I feel like more people should go into writing. If you are a strong writer, you're a strong reader, and people say there's no money in writing. There is, like, some people are like, what are you, those UX, user experience people. There are a lot of positions for AI. I know everybody has different feelings about it, but they are, some companies are hiring for that. It's just a lot of things you can do. There are some positions that, no, you may not get rich, but it sometimes it's better to do something you like than to get, if you're gonna make,
Yes.
people like, is it make over 100K? And I'm like, yeah, but the job you have doesn't make over 100K. Like, you like it, so you might as well do something you like. So yeah, the writing processes, or becoming a writer or maintaining a career as a writer, is you doing different things. You may not always make money from writing, because I primarily wrote nonfiction middle grade, so you have to pivot a lot with writing.
So my question is, so you talked about pivoting with writing. So you brought up AI, and I wanted to just tap
Ooh.
on that for just a minute. In the era of AI, do you feel like it is a threat to organic writers, like you and I? And
Ooh.
why or not?
Oh, okay. Yes. And I want to say that I want to recognize, because I'm neurodivergent too, I want to recognize that there are people who are neurodivergent on the spectrum, dyslexic, etc., who have been very vocal about why they use certain AI programs for whatever they use. And we know that there are different ways that AI is, that we use it every day with our phones. But what Jamie is talking about is specifically using it to write a book. And so, ugh, so Jamie and I are writers. I will say, if you want to make it a hobby to write, and you like to, whatever you like to do, I feel like you should write. You don't go to someone who's a painter or a cake decorator or a baker and ask for the computerized version. I
Yeah.
think it's the same thing for us, and for those people who do decide to use AI to write a whole book. It looks like it feels like it. Most times people can very much tell that it's been done by AI. There's no heart in it. And if you ever want to make money on it, it's very hard for you to do, because it's not, you can't copyright it. So that same thing you wrote about, whatever story you wrote, someone else can make the same thing. And what can you do about it? Because it was computer generated. So that's another thing. Like legally, people need to consider that. And also, I don't understand why. And again, I think sometimes people think when you're a writer, oh, you have a book. It's either like a thing of you wanting to seem important because you have a book, or you want people to think you have a lot of money. Um, that may sound negative. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm saying that
We're
what are
being
your
real. We're being very real. You know, I'm all about the real. So let's.
yeah, and I think people need to think about that. What are your reasons for wanting to write a book? Because there are thousands of authors, and not all of us are millionaires. And I would say that most of us are not millionaires. It's not something. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's very hard to become the next Stephen King, the next J.K. Rowling's, even though you know how people feel about that one. But it's very hard to become that in this day and age. And I think people come in thinking, anybody can write a book. I'm going to write a book and I'm going to make XYZ. And you wind up spending a lot of money with very little. I mean, maybe your cousins or your aunties may buy it, but you wind up spending a lot of money for something that has very little return. But I guess you
So
get bragging rights. I don't know. It's not easy. So I don't know why people would want to do that if they're not in it.
and we talk about that all the time. Like this
Hmm.
era has really become the era of people feeling like it's a bragging right to say you have a book, but it
Yeah.
demands so much work. And if you're working from the ground organically, especially if you are independently published, especially, it demands so much work that does not always balance out in money. And so
Hmm.
that conversation piece I feel is really important. I think for me, the other thing I always talk about though is the benefit of being a writer is it far surpasses other things because it is the increase in vocabulary, the mental exploration, the intellectual drive, the benefits of it as well, like as far as mental wellness goes. So there are so many other deep ingrained components and benefits of writing that I feel like we lack if we are just out here looking to produce something and say we've done it. There's
Hmm.
such a it's like saying, you know, I went to medical school to say I'm a doctor, but then I don't actually do any work that drives forward the mission of it, right? And I think the same thing is the case with being a writer. To say that you have published a book, but not doing anything that's actually driving forward the digging into of the work or driving you as
Yeah.
an intellectual, driving you, because before you drive any impact to impact others, your work must first impact you. That's
Yeah.
my right. There's not a book I
Hmm.
feel I've written that didn't impact me before it ever even touched the hands of somebody else to read it. Um,
Hmm.
and really, ultimately, that's how you will realize that it's going to become a book in the first place. Those moments, that exploration, that knowledge, that intellectual capacity of it first connects with you before it is able to connect with anyone else. And so I love everything that you said because that's very true. But I think that we also fail to realize that there is a value to the world of writing, the world of reading and literature that drives forth knowledge, brain development, sustains our wellness, all of those things that we have attached from it and instead made it a box checking process. And
Yeah.
that I think can be very dangerous. What do you think about that?
I agree with that. I would love for um uh, so many things to say. And but I definitely agree with you. And I just feel like more people should kind of get in a place to kind of consider what you want to do and not so much looking at what others
Yeah.
have accomplished. Um and say, I want to be like Jamie, or I'm just using you as an example. Instead of looking at other people and saying, I want to do this and then that might not be your wheelhouse. I think people should really kind of focus on what their wheelhouse is. And it may be writing, it may be whatever it is, but study. if you say you want to do something, I think it's important for you to kind of do the work, like you were saying, in research and kind of understand what you want to do before you kind of jump into it. Or, I would say take shortcuts, but people take shortcuts all the time, but it just feels so hollow. All of these AI books, and people can tell. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, people just really need to kind of sit down and think about the things that they want to do without the idea of like, I want to be a millionaire. Well, you're probably not going to get there with your first book, your first AI book. So yeah, I agree with everything you said.
You were so funny. I agree, Margot. So you kind of lead me into a question that I think connects to that part very well, which is, what is it that you think people don't understand about being a professional writer?
Mm. Um, I will say that I feel like people don't understand the amount of reading that professional
Yes,
writers do. I think
yes.
that you probably can't see, I have a lot of books in behind me, and I support other writers. Sometimes I get books from publishers. There was a time that I would get like a lot of books because I had like the little black books and talking about children's books. But it takes a reader to really write, and especially to kind of understand genres, understand voice. It's not something that you can easily, and that's what we were just talking about. It's not something that you can easily pick up. And whenever you become like a professional writer and you say, okay, this is you have to look at it as a job and understand the business side of what sells, what may not sell, how to pivot and when to pivot. It's a job. And as fun as it may be, as rewarding as it is to see your work, um, published, and to also feel that kind of recognition of having done something like that, or actually see your baby, your book baby. It is a job, and as every job, there are good and bad things about it. But I think the biggest thing people kind of don't do is reading to kind of understand, not only, like I said, the voice and different structures and things like that, but also the market. Like if you want to write
Yeah.
middle grade books, and you kind of need to know what sells, and what doesn't sell. Because a lot of times people are like, well, no one is doing this, and then it's like, that's not something that really sells. You can do it, but if you want to sell this for whatever you think it's worth, then you need to realize this is not what publishers are buying. And sometimes when I have conversations like in my editing business, I'll have like different consults with people who want to go, or maybe are considering going to traditional publishing. And so um fortunately, they listen, because it's like I'll say, oh, this would be da 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 da, or this, maybe you can consider this or that. And I think it's important to just kind of have that understanding that it's a business, and because you love your work and you think it's the best thing ever, it doesn't diminish what you've done. It may not be the right fit for the market. Sometimes people are buying vampire stories, sometimes they aren't, and you kind of have to pay attention to what's going on. So it's a bit, you have to read, and you have to have that understanding.
I love that. And when you talk about knowing what is going to move and when in the writer's market, that's such a big thing. And it does make a big difference, not only in how it's perceived, but most definitely in opportunities that are presented for you. And so I think that's really important. I think you also made me think about, I think my thing that I think is grossly misunderstood is how the part that you talked about, reading to write, is really how writing also drives intellectual capacity. It and so writing is not a I can pick up a pen and do it type of situation. As you write more, you grow more, you
Mhm.
expand more. One thing I used to always tell my publishing and editing clients was, your first book will look nothing like your second book. Your second will look nothing like your
Mhm.
third book, primarily because you are growing and evolving. Even as you are going through this writing process, your level of intellectualism is being driven forward. And so
Mhm.
I always think about that, because to me, some of our favorite writers out there, the biggest thing wasn't for them to say, "Oh, I'm a writer because I want my books to be whatever, or I want them to be in this particular place," but it was really about a mission to drive forward strategic conversations or writing being advocacy in any way that you do it, even if it's technical writing. Typically, you connect yourself with someone whose projects aligns with what your writing vision or mission is. You're not gonna write go
Yeah.
if I'm a writer, I'm not gonna go write for an organization that's putting out hate information, right? I'm gonna go
Yeah.
align with an organization that I feel is credible, that I feel is doing work that I think is important, or I'm not gonna want to stay with that place, especially as a writer, because it's a process that requires you to work in isolation a lot of times and a lot of technical thinking. So
Hmm.
you're not going to want to sacrifice that by saying, I'm just going for the space where, oh, maybe it's money, or oh, maybe, it's an opportunity for me, but it's not really aligning with what I want. I think that is
Yeah.
we vastly there's become a gap in understanding the intellectualism of writing, and that's why we always feel that there doesn't have to be a lot of self-sacrifice attached to it. But even if you look at those writers that have hit a great level of success, many of them will share with you how long they took to be shaped and molded as writers, what lessons they learned, how many books they've written, and things like that. And all of those have added to their ability to improve their skill so that they are able to finally reach the market in the way that they desire. So I love your
Yeah.
answer on that.
Yeah.
So my next question is, let me see. Who are your top three favorite writers, right? If we can do right now, because I know that changes for us, like as we get older. I don't think it's really changed for me. But who would you consider to be your top three favorite writers and why?
Ooh. Okay. So I will always say Toni Morrison, because
Mm,
I'm
yes.
a I'm I'm a haunted. I love those kind of things, and I felt like if I were ever able to, I feel like if I were ever able to get a hold of Beloved and do it the way that I see it, I feel like I know a lot of people didn't like the Oprah version, but I kind of feel like there's a horror element that could come in a lot better. And not to say that our those African American traditions or conjuring or hoodoo or the spiritual traditions, I should say, are linked to horror, but as I just have a different vision for it. Like every time I think about the book and then the movie, I always have a vision for it if I'm ever able to be in a position to do it. But of course, Toni Morrison, Zora Neale Hurston, because I I love some great Black history. I love the hoodoo stories and traditions. All of her short stories and all of her work that she did with gathering and anthropologic work, right? Anthropology work, and yeah, that she did. I'm a big fan of Zora Neale Hurston, huge, and just learning about her. I am always studying her and her use of dialect and how she put kind of the Southern vernacular
Mm-hmm.
um, on the pages where her peers did not appreciate it for different reasons. And I think I would say Ernest Gaines is going to always
Mm-hmm.
be,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's going to always be on my top three because I just can't believe that I had a chance to meet him years ago, years, because he's um down here, or he was down here. He has since gone on to glory, but he was down here, and I think he spoke somewhere, and I knew the guy who got him, and I was like, oh, the next time, and I kept saying I need to be more forceful, but you know how I am. So I didn't get a chance to meet him. And I was like, that's one of the biggest regrets in my life, that he was so close and had those classes at UL. And I did not
Me
make my
too.
way.
Me
Yeah,
too.
I should have made my way, knocked on doors to go see
Yeah.
him. Just a phenomenal writer who will, to me, always be well, hopefully not always. I feel like he's underappreciated when we talk about the like African American authors, but I
Mhm.
don't feel like he's underappreciated in Louisiana.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
So those are my top three that just that I'm just gonna forever go back to. If I'm having a week and I need to think about voice, I'll go back and read Zora. Of course, their eyes were watching God. If I'm thinking about how to do something and have that kind of like lyrical, um, or kind of lyrical or descriptive, whatever I'm working on that I want it to be more descriptive, I'll go to, in a southern way, I'll go to Tony. And then Ernest Games just made me feel so grounded in his work. And that's like something if I'm working on something literally, even things I'm working on now, I will go back and kind of like be inspired by the way that they write. And there are others too, but those are my top three.
I think it's, this may be a weird explanation to attach to it, but I feel like Ernest Gaines' writing was so clean and crisp.
Mm-hmm.
He had beautiful analogies, he had wonderful imagery, but there was
Mm-hmm.
just something so clean and clear about his storytelling.
Yeah.
You,
Oh,
you,
he
you,
is. He is amazing. I agree with you. I'm a huge fan. I'm telling you, I could beat myself up that I did not get to touch the hem of his garment while he was here with us. But
I think that makes
you know,
two of us. And I remember one of his latter year lectures he had done at ULL. No, I think he might have been visiting LSU. And I
mm-hmm,
had relocated and I was trying my best to get down there to it. And I just could not make it for whatever commitment issues I had. But I've spent a lot of time even just looking at ULL, various programs they had. At one point, when I thought I was going to get my PhD in English, that was where I was considering there and a program at Howard.
mm-hmm,
Because with Ernest Gaines, I was like, that would put me so close to my own roots. And I knew that
mm-hmm,
so much of the program was also about connecting with him and a lot of the work that they were doing down in South Central Louisiana. So I fully agree with you on that, friend. And one of the things that I try to remember, because I have multiple copies of his books, some of them, I think that he us choosing to, because he's the only historical well-known writer. We have writers, we have some in this era that have made some imprints, but I feel as far as Louisiana being on the international landscape, there's still so much work to do. I think he is the blueprint for us and the imprint for us to keep building on the beginning of that legacy. And I
mm-hmm,
stand by saying, especially as women, I look to see or hope to see Black literary women that make a global impact on the literary world. I'm not talking about, our self-help or history genre directly. I'm talking about their literary community. And I think that that's when we talk about literary works, for us, Ernest Gain is so important because of his profound talent in the literary arena. And
agree.
I think that will always stick with us. I think that will. And I love Toni Morrison too. So no, we won't even get started on that because I agree with you about the horror impact. Sometimes what that taps into is the the religiosity of storytelling in our community. We get really shook by addressing the horror aspect of it, but the trauma our people have experienced is a horror story. And so,
Mm-hmm,
because of that, the necessary symbolism of that has to happen in our work. If we're
mm-hmm,
really telling the story of our people, if we're telling even present day stories that lean directly into some of our real life cultural experiences, it is attached to horror. It is that's the
yeah.
reality of it. And so, we're going to talk about that in a minute because who, for those who don't know, that's what really sets Margeaux apart from other writers you may hear about. Her face is going to light up in a minute. So uh, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next question, which is tell us about your favorite literary genre to write in and why you are so passionate about it.
Oh yeah. So my favorite to write in, I have a Substack called Haintland, And it's horror. It's of course set in Louisiana, so it's Southern horror, um, short stories. And I really like to write horror. I think I've always been attracted to the other. Um, and so those kind of things, like, I talked about like different things that I was into as a kid, or like the music videos, but I also really liked Tim Burton as a kid. So which is like the creepy, the spooky, the kind of things like that. And then I got into horror. But I love writing horror because I like to explore what kind of frightens us, what makes us uneasy. Those things are very interesting because it's not always like a slasher. Sometimes it's sometimes it's something psychological, it's something that's quiet. Um,
Mm,
so, like, for example, Black people's relationships to ghosts are
mm,
very different than other cultures.
yeah.
In a lot of things that I'm reading about other cultures, some of it is similar. So I would say that if you read a ghost story or you watch a ghost story, and it's like The Haunting of Hill House, which is like one of my favorite series. Mike Flanagan is great. I just watched that recently, like for the 10th time. But if you watch that, their relationship to ghosts and their fear of ghosts, even if they were familiar ghosts, is very different to like a Toni Morrison angle on how we deal with family ghosts and that kind of thing. I feel like it's more kind of, oh, you saw a ghost? Oh, what did it say? Versus, oh, you saw a ghost? Oh my God, run out the house. Like it's a very different kind of relationship. But yeah, that's my favorite thing to write. I enjoy writing my short stories for Hankland, and I can't wait to sell. I'm knocking on wood. I can't wait to sell a book that kind of explores the wonderfully weird things that are on in my head, as far as like horror and southern, especially Southern Gothic um, stories.
I'm really Southern Gothic stories. I love that phrase every time you use it. And I'm really intrigued because I think one of the things I had to learn, and I remember, and over the years, I've always been like, "Oh, Margot, I can read everything, but those horror stories you write, I don't know, friend. I'm so scary." So I've had to learn how to start reading into some more in the daytime. But what I'm also learning about Black horror, whether it's showing up in the movies like Candyman, or it's showing up in literature, is it usually represents a deeper context of our community, and a lot of time the horrors are symbolic of other things.
Yeah.
So I had to pull myself back from just the idea that, oh, I don't like this because it's going to be scary to read, and really ask myself from a deeper context, what message is this writer giving me through these characters and through this story? That's not so much about the horror of it, but what that represents, what that
Hmm.
experience is.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. That's really what it is. And I have to point to, I know people who watch horror are always familiar with The Haunting of Hill House. Um, and if you haven't seen it, it's so good. But it's family trauma. It's generational. It's a generational haunting, right? The mother, or was
Yeah.
it? Not necessarily, but it's definitely like the family haunting, and getting doing a deep dive into the family issues that caused this. Everything happened in this house, and it caused everybody to have these different issues. And then, of course, you have to come back to the house. So it's always so much deeper than there's a ghost trying to kill me or something like that. So that it's just, I love horror. I love odd things, like Wednesday and things like that. So those are always up my alley because I'm always trying to kind of understand the other in different spaces.
I love it. One of the commenters said, I guess in regards to what we were talking about, like what it means whenever you see a ghost in the house and culture and community, I'm running out the house first and then ask me to say, I need to get to a safe space first and then ask later.
Oh yeah, sometimes you have to do that because I would do that as well. Now if it was a family ghost, if it was someone I recognize, and I'm like, that's like my great great great, I might say, well, what are you doing here? But if it's just a random, yeah, I'm gonna go out, and then we're gonna have to figure it out later.
I
So
already told Margot
I
I
agree.
want no parts. That's why I'm reading. That's why I'm reading what I'm reading in the daytime, honey. I don't need to hear nor see, but really seeping to understand a deeper context. But I think that's also the thing we talk about when we talk about the journey of writers as well. Having been able to have intellectual conversations about this is not just about what we are writing, but also about the reality of life and even things that we hear, our ability to really interpret life journeys and experiences. That's different whenever the analytical realm is a part of how you operate each day. And I think as writers, Margot, that's it. Like, we analyze full time. And so we
Yeah.
analyze every part of it. And that's what ties into writing, but also ties into our compassion for people, our views on the world, our understanding of things from a different perspective that perhaps other people may not think about all of the time. What
Hmm.
would you say about that?
I agree with you. I think writing, being a writer, being a person who tells stories requires a curiosity. Um, and I'm sorry, I just saw something pop up, but it requires a curiosity, and that understanding, and not only just other cultures, but the way that people react to things. It just always helps to be curious when you're a person who says that you're a writer, you're a creative. You have to be curious about other people, and do the research. So yeah, I completely agree, and would say that's an important part of what we do.
I love it. I love it. You have to be curious about things, other people, lives, customs. That's a life lesson. That's a life lesson. That's a life lesson right there. Okay.
Hmm.
So my next question is, so we're getting a little bit back to the field and what you do and what you enjoy. You have had so many amazing opportunities. You have done independent writing, you've done contracted books, you are also agented, which is something that people don't get to say that often. You have a writing agent. So my question to you is one of my favorite things to ask writers, and it's interesting. I love to hear your answer because specifically because when I entered this industry full time, you had some very interesting advice for me. Self-publishing versus writing, or independent publishing versus a writing contract or a book contract. Which one do you think is the best route to take and why?
Um, okay. So, yee. I would say it really depends. I remember being on something like years ago, and I think the person said something about I wouldn't go the I wouldn't get an agent, I wouldn't go with a publisher. And we were talking about traditional publishing. So traditional publishing is basically you have an agent and you sell your work through a publisher. So we were talking about that, and she said I wouldn't do it for less than six figures. And so she was saying I wouldn't do it for less than six figures, and people were like, yeah, yeah. And I don't agree with that, because every book that you write is not a children's book that you write is not a six figure deal. There's not unless you're like Michelle Obama, you're probably not getting six figures for a children's book that's like 24 pages. Um, so I will say when we talk about self-publishing versus traditional publishing or going through a publisher, it really depends. If you are a person who has a personality, has a reach, is able to go out and get it, kind of has the money to for the marketing and the things that you need to do that, and you want to tell your story the way you want it told, you want to decide on your cover, you want to decide how every process goes, then self-publishing is a great route. They have an amazing group of indie writers who are always at book fests, and these book fests that are happening across the country, really kind of focus on indie writers, and it's an amazing community that I'm like learning more about. And you can hire an editor for whatever you need. You just have to go through the marketing. So there's a place for everything. I think in some genres, self-publishing makes more sense, especially if you want to get things out faster, because traditional publishing, once you sign your
Mm-hmm.
contract, it
Mm-hmm.
can take 2 to 3 years before your book comes out. If you don't want to go through all of that, then you don't need to go through traditional publishing. And so for traditional publishing, there are also um, pros and cons. The pros are, for me, I don't once I write everything, someone edits it, they send it back to me, and we make sure everything is okay, and they handle everything. That's the way it's supposed to be. They handle the marketing, they handle, whatever, and I just get paid in advance. So, and then for people who are unsure or don't know, traditionally published authors get in advance. If you're going through a traditional publisher and they're not trying to pay you, or they're asking you to put money into it, that's more like a vanity press. It's not a traditional publisher. And sometimes you don't have to have an agent to go through a traditional publisher, but you should be getting paid. So for for people who need that, that works, because if you get a $50,000 book deal, your agent, if you have an agent, may take 15%, and then everything else, that's your money. It may allow you the opportunity to work part-time instead of full-time. Whatever it does, it's the advance money, which is against your sales. If your book never sells 50,000, you don't have to pay it back. So you got that money to produce what they paid you for, and you get royalties. So if your book does reach that amount that they advanced you, then you get royalties, a percentage of all the book sales. So those are the pros. The cons of traditional publishing, of course, I said the time frame, but also now, as a Black author, and this is just not something that I'm saying like across the board, if you follow different authors that you like, you may see them talking about the lack of marketing, how they feel like there should be more help in pushing the book. um,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that a lot of people complain about, and I don't mean to complain in a negative way. I would say that those are some of the things that people are concerned about in traditional publishing: the amount of work in marketing that you still have to do even though you have a book deal. So, I feel like neither one is perfect. It just depends on what you're doing. And often, if people reach out to me, or I have a consult with people who are trying to decide what to do, um for example, and I'm saying this now because he tells this story. One of my former clients, who has a very big book, or trilogy, very big now. But whenever he first came to me, he needed an editor. He was trying to decide which route to go, and it was a YA fantasy. It is a YA fantasy, and for his book, I said, you need to get an agent and sell this. You're going to get a big deal. And you can't often predict that, but often, if it's high stakes, YA fantasy was hot at that time. It was kind of like, this is what you watch what people are buying, right? The publishers, and it's like, people are buying this. So if I were you, I would try to get a deal first, and if it doesn't work, you can go that route. So fortunately, he listened to me, and his series is huge. I mean, he's a bestseller and things like that. And I only tell that because he has said it. If he didn't say, I'm glad that she convinced me to do this, I wouldn't mention it, because everybody has their own story. But that's the point. Like, there are some books that it's like, why don't you at least try, because people are buying this, and you can get the advance necessary to not have to work for a while, or to supplement your income in a way that you haven't been able to do, to give you the time to be creative. Because being creative is not free, right? It takes away from something. You have to either not work as much or not spend as much time with family. It's always something to do when
Yes,
you're creative.
it's a sacrifice. It really
It's a
is.
sacrifice,
It's
yeah.
a very big sacrifice. And I have to share that a lot, because a lot of times I get people asking me when I have the next book coming out, and people really don't understand that it is a sacrifice, and it takes a lot of
Yeah, it takes a
emotional.
lot of that.
So you have to have the correct time and space to get the work done, because it is such tasking emotional work and cognitive work to develop these projects. You may get, honey, that draft may get sent back to you 56 times to get it where it's supposed to be. And if you really
Mm-hmm.
that project, you have to see that all the way through. I wanted to say as well, like that's what I'm talking about with Margot when I talked earlier about how she is so for the love of the work, but also for the love of those people she cares about. Because there are this is where we could say, I use the word gatekeeping very lightly because I don't believe that we are entitled to any information that someone has learned and worked to possess for themselves. Okay. And that's a whole different discussion. But she could have withheld even just the idea that she believed this project was bigger than that for him, and she shared that guidance and that insight, and it turned into an amazing opportunity. And in my opinion, I think it's also going to continue to manifest great things for Margot, and has as well, because she's been a part of guiding this awesome writer through this project and even interviewing him recently on a major platform. But the fact that she, from a very genuine place, said, I think you need to handle this differently, and here's why. And he followed those instructions. And I will say this as well. I remember when I came to you and I was like, well, Margot, I would really like an agent as well. And I talked to you about it. And you said, Jamie, you have an amazing social media platform. You have a wealth of people that follow and support you. You've been doing this a long time. And you also said to me, and you just have the personality to carry this work. I think
Mm-hmm.
you can do this for yourself. And if the opportunity comes along to get picked up, then you can go with that. You said, but
Yeah.
you already actively write, you actively produce these projects that are really good. So don't stop doing that. That's what you told me. And I still stand by saying it was the wisest thing that I have been told. And some
Yeah.
other things that you told me recently about, in particular, how you felt about Tricked, and advised me you giving around that. And I'm not going to throw that information in the air because I believe that the
Yeah.
opportunity for what you've said will come to pass because I trust your insight that much. And so I'm just saying, like the way that you've also so willingly offered that insight to others as we navigate this realm, has truly been amazing as well. And I think that that's what makes such an amazing writing community. And even more so to have a woman like you right here in our state. And for me, right here in my sister circle.
Mm, thank you. Yeah, I mean, and I would also like to say, Jamie just pointed out something about Jamie has the personality to kind of push whichever way that she wants. I want to say that everybody doesn't have that. I don't have it. I'm not saying that you don't have to be what you're not. I think people have to realize that if you are a person like Jamie, who can kind of command a crowd and things like that, marketing different things, then a lot of things can open for you. You can start out one way and you can end up another way. You have your choice. I am one of those people I'm kind of quiet. Like if I'm, I have to kind of like think about what's coming. And if I don't, I have to like, I'm processing it a little bit differently. So, if I'm up talking to people and that's happening, they're like, what is she just standing there? And I'm
You
like, I'm thinking, but like it doesn't come off as great. And I think that's important for people to realize who they are. Are you a person who can get out there? And I want to say, there's an author who recently got self-published author recently got a deal, and she writes speculative. I don't know if she or they, so excuse me if you know who I'm talking about, and I didn't use the right pronoun, but one of the books is it's like Maggie Gray. Somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. This person just got a deal recently, and they had been self-publishing for a while. I say that
Mhm.
to say, when it's your time, it's your time, whatever way you decide to go, for that particular client, because I've had other people that have done really well in that frame, but for that particular client, with the things that he was doing and the position that he was in, it just made sense, especially since people were looking for that book. Sometimes you may have um there are times when publishers are looking for paranormal or vampire things, right? but there are times when they're not. You remember back in the day, Twilight was really popular, and
Yes, yes.
it was nothing for a while, and then now it's this new like Internal Ruin, and Her Thing is a bestseller now. Sometimes your book is not the right time, and then it may be okay. Either you hold it or you self-publish it, you
Yeah.
know, or write something else that kind of fits with the time. Not to write to the to what's going on, but you know, you have to keep that in mind too. So all of that is important. It's just, you know, um everything is kind of different depending on your circumstances. So
And I want to reiterate this. That means no less success that we have two different ways to approach the journey. Because here's the amazing,
absolutely.
Margot has been able to consistently have writing opportunities that are contracted, being a sensory reader, advising bigger authors on a pathway to follow. And so that's why I think what you were saying is so important, Margot, like knowing exactly how you're supposed to be doing this, knowing exactly what works for you, knowing what your identity is, because that ultimately, I don't care what anybody says, that's what creates a success for you. And I feel like that message that you just shared is so phenomenal, because here we are sharing the same passion, having the same major, brought together on the same journey, but even the coaching you've given me on my pathway has been based on you observing what I do, how I move, what I have, what my skill set is, and what my gifts are, saying, okay, Jamie, this is how you need to navigate that journey. And then being able to look at your own pathway and say, okay, this is my skill set, this is my gift, this is my expertise, and this is how the journey navigates for me. And I think that is so important, not just in this writing realm, but in real life, because we have
Yeah.
a lot of things going on in the world. Coveting has been on me so heavily lately. Like, we're looking at what other people are doing and we want to do that in that way. And that is not necessarily the way that everybody's journey is set up. We have to know how our journey is set up. So for us to be able to thrive in that, to be comfortable, and most importantly, to really love what we get to do. When you make the
Hmm.
sacrifice of stepping into that thing, honey, it's no reason for you not to love what you are doing and enjoy the journey. No matter what the rough points are, you will enjoy the idea of the journey, because you know that it's where you're supposed to be. So I love that you said that. That stirred up some emotions in me. That was some solid wisdom. Thank you for that. Thank you
Oh,
for that.
thank you. Yeah, I hope people kind of um take that in as they are working on whatever creative pursuits that they are working on. I think that you know, I'm in my 40s. So at this time, I'm very much aware, and I think I've always been aware, but I've always adjusted. I think at
Yeah,
this I don't really feel the need to adjust as much.
yeah,
Um, you know, I need to pivot if I need to work on this instead of that. And I want to share something too. I'm not and I don't mean to be woo woo or whatever, but I firmly believe in things. For me, signs have come in whenever I'm supposed to do certain things, whenever I'm supposed
yeah,
to move. That's a whole nother story.
yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah.
but
We talk about that all the time, friend. It's yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
I will
yeah.
say for the book, let me see. The book that's behind me, and I'll just put it right here for this one. This was on Netflix. This story about Malcolm and um Muhammad Ali. And this was an adult book, and I wrote the middle grade adaptation, right? I want to say that the way I got that deal was I did not ask for that deal. We were not, when my agent sent the book I have out now, was the book that we were trying to get, the book about neurodivergence, which was this one. So this is my newest book, but we were sending that out, right? Because we were sending it out. That's called querying, trying to get someone to buy it.
Mhm.
And the people at Hachette, they liked my writing sample, but they didn't want the book that I was trying to sell. And she said, "Can Margot write something else, would she be interested in auditioning for this book, the Malcolm and Muhammad? It wasn't much money. It was kind of like last minute, and I was not really feeling it. I had a dream about the book. And so, like, days later, after we had already was like, no, we're not going to worry about it. I had a dream about the book. I dreamed about Malcolm and Martin, and it was a book. It wasn't this cover, but they were on the cover. And so I emailed my agent and I said, I think we should consider it. I didn't tell him why. I just said, I think we should consider it. And I said, I think I'm supposed to write this book. And that's kind of how that happened. I was supposed to write the adaptation. There was something, and I remember a lot of it is adapted from the adult novel. So it's me kind of putting a spin on it for a younger audience. But a lot of it was really me. And it was like, especially the end, I've always been really touched by Malcolm X. So his death, like, you remember when the movie came out, like oh my gosh, the eulogy that Ozzie Davis said. So I felt like something was calling me to do that. So the end of the book, in which we talk about his death and everything else, I really like kind of poured into it. It just was just going. I already knew the research. I already knew how it went. So I didn't have to like do so much research. And that's like the editors, like that was like my favorite part. That was so great and everything else. And I say that to say, sometimes when you're trying to do one thing, and that's when I was talking about pivot, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. That wasn't the right fit for that publisher, but they had something else for me, which I didn't even see for myself at the time. And I think it's good to be open and also just kind of be like, led, however you're led, whatever you believe in. And for me, kind of seeing that or dreaming about the people on the cover, because that book wasn't out. The cover was not my decision. Somebody made it, but these two people, the way that they're looking, it wasn't this background, was in my dream. So I feel like I kind of, it was a calling to write that story. And I feel like when you're creative, when you're writing, when you're telling your stories, something in you should feel that it's your calling to be writing that story, that you're the only person that could tell this story the way to be told. And so I would encourage people to find that. And if you're trying to cosplay as somebody else, or you're feeling like, I want to be like, I keep using you, Jamie, because you're here. But if you're feeling like I want to be like Jamie, you need to kind of and find out, who do you are yourself. What is whatever you believe in calling you to write. And maybe it's not horror. For me, it's horror. And I know Jamie was saying some of the stuff is kind of scary. Most of it is kind of the things that we grew up in Louisiana, dealing with,
I was scared.
Yeah. It's not too bad. It's not slasher, but it was something that was calling me to write that, because I already had those stories. So I was like, well, let me put it on here. And it's been a tremendous response. It's been some really great, amazing authors have supported it. I keep getting into the top 40 in Substack. I say that to say, you have to be led by something and try to make that something that's positive. Try to make that something that's authentic. And I feel like that's how people find their purpose. Like, what is your higher calling you to do? And it's not copy off of someone else.
Oh, friend, you have me so emotional today. Y'all, this is why bringing back the Black intellectualism movement is so funny, because I spend all those interviews that are really, which every interview that I schedule, they all stem from something that personally connects with me. But there are times when, especially talking with my people that we've journeyed together, it gets so emotional to just see you in full alignment with your identity and knowing where you should be and what you're doing. And is watching dreams in real time for me. And so just that wisdom that you spew out. And I know we talk all the time, and honey, when Margeaux and I get on that phone, I never want to let her get off. If I touch the tip of South Louisiana, I'm running over to see my friend and hug her. and talk to her in real time because I just enjoy so much of her wisdom and insight and love and the energy she gives off. But just soaking up that energy, and I imagine what is awaiting the world to hear your voice and to soak up some of that wisdom that you offer humanity. And it's just such an emotional journey to listen to it in real time, and I love it. I love it. I love it. Just such wisdom that's insightful and that we in particular as women need to hear. We need to
Mm.
hear, we need to know, we need to feel, we need to understand about these journeys that we're on to try to balance what everybody else wants and what we want for ourselves. So these
Mm-hmm.
kind of conversations are important for that reason. And there are men that will be inspired by them as well. So I love it. I love it. So we have just a couple of more questions because, honey, we have already exceeded our hour. Okay. And I don't want to
Oh,
violate too much of your time. Number one. So
oh,
the next one is, huh?
I said, oh, this is me today, just in this office. So go ahead.
And I'm handling this like a regular phone call, and I shouldn't be. Okay. I have to handle it with professionalism, Margot. Okay.
You are
So
being very professional.
my next question is, not only are you a literary entrepreneur, because people are listening like, oh, this is really awesome. She has this great career path. Well, I have this responsibility, I have that responsibility, I have this, I have that. But there's so much more to you than that. You are a mom of not one, not two, but three boys. Three
Mm-hmm.
boys. And you're
Mm-hmm.
also a wife. How do
Mm-hmm.
you balance? And let's be clear, you're a mom that is a former educator, honey. So,
Mm-hmm.
it hits different about what we expect with education and engagement and involvement. We feel very differently, even when we leave the classroom. So, how do you manage to balance all of your roles and still be active in your career?
Oh wow. So I will tell you, my last two kids are like 16 months apart. So at the height of I'll go back to 2020, right? So because they're what, like 6 and 5 now, five. Ooh, I don't know how old they are. 7, 6. So at the height of 2020, whenever everything was happening and I was getting these opportunities, whatever, they were little. So I had two under two, 2018, no, 2019, 2020, whatever. It was very hard. It was very hard for me, but I did not want to give that piece of myself up. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is that, you know, there were so many things I wanted to do. I wanted to be a writer. This is what I wanted to do. And I knew that I was not going to be happy if I didn't, if
Yeah.
it didn't happen for me in the way that I saw it. Everyone
Yeah.
has their level of success. Mine is residual um income. I like for the royalties just to hit my check account. I don't want to be famous. I just want to be secure.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to do the things that I love. If I want to go sit on a beach, I want to go sit on a beach and not worry about I can't afford the hotel. That
Mhm.
was always my idea of success, the peacefulness accompanied with just being financially secure. So I didn't want to give up that piece of myself because I felt like, and I still feel like, being a professional writer, being a full-time in publishing, a full-time writer was what I was supposed to do. The way that I balanced it, I have a really good husband, one, but I haven't, at this point we've been married for like 8 years. I don't have this long marriage. I was single, or a single mom for longer than I've been married. So the way that I've always balanced it was finding the boundaries. Like I will very quickly put my phone on like focus. I will leave my phone in another room because if it's by me, I'm going to answer it. But if I put
Mhm.
it on focus, or
Mhm.
if I put it in the room, that gives me business hours. People are nurses. Nobody calls and bothers the nurse because they know she's at work. I wanted
Yeah.
people, nobody's bothering me or anything like that. It wasn't anything personal. But I knew if I didn't do it, if I didn't find the time, or if I didn't carve out the time between being a mom, cooking, having children in the house, if I didn't carve out that time to try to flesh out my dream, then I was going to be disappointed. I was going to be unfulfilled. And I didn't want to take that out on anybody else because I feel like that was my dream and I was responsible for it, coming to pass in the way that it did. So balancing was about putting up boundaries, saying that I'm at home, but this is my working hours. Or I'm, like for my kids, they need to understand that mommy's working. They are little.
Yes,
I have two kids on the spectrum. So, but they began to understand when I set those boundaries that if I have this on my window, that means that mommy's working. And now that they're older, it's very much like they will knock and say, "Can I XYZ?" It took a while to get them there, but I think boundaries are so important for us as women. If you're a neurodivergent like me, and I found out that I was neurodivergent, I always thought that I was. I didn't have the right words for it, and I recently wrote about that for HuffPost. I wrote about being neurodivergent, and finding out after I had kids. Um, and the reason why I'm saying that I wrote about it is because people emailed me and kind of shared my experience and said how they had the same experience, and I'm not used to that kind of attention, like, you thank you for writing that kind of thing. I get that sometimes, but it's always new to me to feel that level of appreciation from people that I don't know, or that level of appreciation for something that I did. Because you just don't think about it because you feel like this is just like I'm writing what I'm thinking, this and that, this and that. But I say that to say that I think all of us are, especially now with all the things that are going on, I feel like all of us have to carve out time, have to figure out time, have to create boundaries to make sure that we're filled or fulfilled. Because it's so easy to lose yourself whenever you have
absolutely.
children, and whether you have a husband or not, when you have children, it is very easy to lose yourself because you're always adjusting to their needs. But you have to create some kind of boundaries, whether that's with whatever you're doing or just like an hour a day if you want to write. Even if it's 15 minutes every morning, getting up early to just start the process, and eventually you will finish if you just keep going. So
I
I think
love
that's how.
it.
Yeah, you have to keep going, set your boundaries. And it has been hard. My kids are older now, but they need something. I'm always running. I'm overwhelmed a lot, and I I find little ways to kind of decompress. Um, I have to find ways to decompress, right? Because I'm the adult in the house. The children are being children. I'm trying to do this professional work, and it's not easy. And we have to find those ways to kind of get through it. It has not been easy. It is not easy.
I like that though, Margot. One thing that I love is that you do address the fact that it is not easy, but you still constantly work to balance that, not just for you, but for everybody to be taken care of. And you know that I
Hmm.
do a lot of work around, the family balance and,
Yeah.
making sure we're fostering time with our children and things like that to ensure that they are prioritized because they do come. I don't care what we say, they come first. When we bring them here, we have to be responsible for not only keeping them alive but giving them our best. But ingraining that, we figure out how do I also work in time for myself so that I'm not overwhelmed or frustrated or angry at the end of the day that I don't still get to exist. But acknowledging
Mm.
that the responsibility of caring for them is our primary concern. And I love the truthfulness of it is not easy and it is not always balanced, but to me it is a constant work, right? I
Yeah.
constantly work to ensure that I am honoring that space for myself, prioritizing my work and self-care while also caring for them. And I want to lean into something right quick that you did say a minute ago, and I really did want to talk about it a little further, but I didn't know how comfortable you felt with it, which is that you have two children that are on the spectrum, which is even more of a challenge. And I think a lot more parents need to hear that because a lot of people feel like they have to delay their dreams for whatever reason. But watching how you have navigated their wellness, even just conversations you and I have had about education, how brilliant they are, ensuring that they are also getting the same educational experience as everyone else. And those things Um, just can you speak a little bit about that as a mother and writer and balancing that additional kind of responsibility to give extra care for your two boys who need a little more support, plus keeping what you do as a center focus of your personal journey?
Yeah. Um, it hasn't been easy. Um, so two of my boys, I think all of us, we are the neuro spicy house. So all I feel like me, I can't really speak for my husband, but I'm neurodivergent, ADHD, and I'm sure there's something else along the ways, but it's definitely ADHD. So diagnosed. And
Yeah.
um so all two of them are on the spectrum. So when we talk about autism, it's a spectrum. My oldest is very high functioning. Um, it's amazing because whenever he was younger, he needed a little bit more, and now that he is much older, he needs the only thing he really kind of needs is kind of like redirection, things like that. He doesn't need the amount of therapy that he needed, and the younger one needs a lot more support. So what has been difficult is having one kid and kind of expecting. I know what autism looks like. I know what being on the spectrum looks like, and then having another kid that is completely different, where one was hyperverbal at 4, the other one was nonverbal. So it definitely is a spectrum. And I will say that, we talk about being a parent and things that you have to do to kind of adjust. There was a lot of putting their needs before mine, of course, as most parents do. But it was also a lot of reading, a lot of trying to figure out what is the best way to do this. Putting them all in therapies to try to help. And when I say those 5 years when publishing was hot for Black editors, I made sure that I was getting those projects and I was getting them out because we needed the money, and spending the money to ensure that the kids were set up the best that we could. You cannot, nothing changes, nothing goes away. It's not a cold where you catch it and then it goes away after a few days or weeks. It is something that is always going to affect the way they process information or the way that they react to people, and just the way they show up in the world. So that's also, I feel like, helped me as a creative, because I have that empathy. Like, I'm not really an emotional person. I'm kind of like, I don't know. It's in me, but it's not. But on paper, and also kind of seeing how they react, like they're very emotional. Not both of them, but one is to things, and it's like, wow, it's amazing to watch somebody have big emotions and a person who can what I'm trying to help them or him do is to verbalize those emotions. So if you see something that's so beautiful or so touching that you cry and all of these things, why are you crying? And that has been something that's helped me creatively in writing, because
I love it.
I
I love
yeah,
it.
so whereas I had to realize, well, Margot, you have trouble verbalizing how you feel about different things. So it taught me, I started to research, well, how can I be better at this? How can I be better at not just like keeping things in, but being more expressive? I still struggle with that, but I'm trying harder, and I'm also learning how to kind of read cues, in that everybody is so different, and that just makes you a stronger creative, somebody, writing these stories and understanding that there are people who literally cannot verbalize the way that they feel. And how does it feel to be in that body where you feel so strongly about something, um that we don't take for granted? Like, it's cold, something hurts me, and they're crying and they're having a thing, and you, so, and as a parent, you're watching this and you're like, I just wish he could say what it was so I can fix it. And realizing that this is not a book, this is not a story character. You can't fix everything. Sometimes you have to accept that this there are people who can't verbalize it. I think that was very eye-opening for me when it got to the last kid, and just kind of being more empathetic and using that in my writing, because I need to be able to describe things better, because I am not a person who is naturally descriptive in that way, or emotional in that way. So I think in all these things that have been a challenge, it's made me just a stronger person all around, in my parenting, in my relationships. I'm still working on everything, of course, but I feel like I'm getting stronger in trying to recognize and respond. And also understanding that my lack of response is can sometimes, as I was told, be due to my neurodivergence.
Yep.
So, my lack of reaction is sometimes because of that, and kind of understanding, okay, I'm processing things, but to somebody else it looks like I'm not paying attention, or I'm
Yes.
not. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So it's
Yes.
just been interesting, and I feel like my kids have just made me a stronger person that's willing to do the work to be better, and to also understand the world better and how we live in that world.
It's so beautiful, friend. You made me cry because it also just, in particular, when you talk about, how your children opened your eyes to compassion and emotions and really channeling that more into the work that you do. I feel like in every field of work we're in, from being a teacher to public service to business people, but especially as creatives, the people in our lives should inspire us to learn more, to be better, to be more. And to hear you say, these are the things I saw in working with my children and learning them and meeting their needs. And I, those lessons like that, for me, that's all part of the journey. That's part
Mm,
of becoming stronger writers. That's part of becoming, better communicators. That's part of the gift of being able to see the world differently, both as neurodivergent and as creatives.
mm.
And it leans into the spirituality of you being able to connect with people differently and do the work that is helping them on their healing and growing journey. And so that was just a beautiful, 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 beautiful answer that you cultivated there. And I love it. I love it. Love it.
Thank you,
Um,
Jamie.
so our last question is one that I feel is simple, but also very complex. You and I
Okay.
talk all the time about how unconventional writing was, and a little bit about what people thought when they heard that we were majoring in English. And I share a little bit more about how my mom really didn't care. She was glad I was going to college. She didn't care what I did. She just wanted me to be happy. She didn't really care. I think when I entered the profession as a teacher, she thought that that was safe. But a part of me
Mm,
feels that my mother always knew that that wasn't my stopping point, because she really
mm-hmm.
believed in what I did as a writer, and she knew I loved it, and she knew I loved speaking. But for so many other people that I encountered, they would always ask me questions about what I was going to do with a degree in English. And even people just directly trying to dissuade me from entering this field, or saying things like, how are you going to be successful? How are you going to do that one day? Well, how would you make it as an entrepreneur? We've had those conversations, Margot. And what I shared personally is that at the end of the day, I found that there was everything that I have done in life comes back to what I do as a writer and speaker. Everything that I've done, touching the lives of other people, being a school teacher, becoming a businesswoman, even volunteer work, it's the success that I've experienced is ultimately rooted in what I know about being a writer and speaker, because communication ultimately is my gift. But to people who feel illogical, who feel that there are typical safe routes to follow, it didn't make sense. And so that
Yeah.
delayed me from actually following my dreams for a good while, and put me in a space where, even though I appreciated what I did, I value the lives that I had to touch, had the chance to touch. It still did not fulfill me. And ultimately, I ended up following my own dreams. And that has been the greatest experience that has allowed me to impact people even more. So, my question to you is, in light of those same things, that same knowledge, some of those same experiences, what would you say to someone who dreams of working in this same industry, literary work, media work? but they feel unsupported or doubted even by friends and family.
Mm. That's really great. I would say, oh, I have a lot to say, but I want to say that I think that whenever you decide, just kind of focusing on writing, I think whenever, and I guess I could say creatively, I think that whenever you decide that I'm going to be a creative, come hell or high water, that you need to decide that you're okay with being alone sometimes, that you're okay with sitting in your creativity. You're okay with being in the room thinking and not always getting the applause or the recognition. And
Yes.
you have
Yes.
to
Yes.
set your mind, you have to create your own environment. In my office, I create my own environment, right? I don't hear the applause. I don't get the you did a good job, because you have to condition yourself not to need it. And if that's something you need, that outward, like, oh, da 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 da, you may want to do
Yes.
something else and write part time until you can
Yeah.
get conditioned enough to be able to sit with yourself in quiet. There's a lot more quiet time as a creative. That,
Mm-hmm.
when you go in the workplace, you can become teacher of the year. You can become all of this stuff. You can be writing for years and never receive an award. You can have there's right now there's these Goodreads awards. I don't, if you go to Goodreads or whatever, a lot of the books on there are not black or written by black people. And some of these black people have won awards, like New York Times bestsellers. There are some amazing authors, black authors in particular, who are, and I'm sure they feel snubbed. It's been a part of the conversation that this is kind of what Goodreads does.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, they already know that the work, the things that they do, the words that they need to get out doesn't necessarily need applause. And so they don't expect it. And I think that's one of the things that, if you decide to do this full time, you have to be okay with the quiet, and you have to get used to not getting like that immediate satisfaction. I would say, especially with traditional publishing, because everything takes so long. You are not on your own time.
Yeah.
Everything is a team of people.
Yeah.
And I say that as a person who has published traditionally, and I say that as a person who has edited and worked for, um, publishers, um, the ones everybody wants to be published by. It's a long process. There are several people to every book, and you kind of have to wait. That's why it takes like 2 to 3 years. Um, if you need that instant satisfaction, you kind of need to look elsewhere. I would also say, like, oh, I just got, I see there's that ADHD. What was the question? Did I I just got off
What
topic
would
that
you say
quick.
to someone
But
who dreams
what was the
of working
question
in the
again?
literary industry? What would you say to someone who dreams of working in the literary industry but feels
Oh wait, I
unsupported?
can't hear you.
Can you hear me? What would you say to someone who dreams of working in the literary industry but feels unsupported by family and friends? Can you hear me, Marco?
Uh-oh, I can't hear you. I It might be
What about
me.
now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Are we
Can you hear me?
I think I remembered the question now. I
Okay.
didn't hear you, but I think I remembered the question. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can. Okay, now I can.
Oh, so you can't hear me. I think the question was, what would my advice? So my advice, if everybody could hear me, is to just get used to the quiet spaces. Do your research, read. You have to be a reader. Read across genres. If you want to write romance, read romance, but also read thrillers so you can, understand pacing and
Mm,
um,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
dialogue and how it feels
Mm-hmm.
to be
Mm-hmm.
rushed and different things like that. Those may not be good examples, but you want to read across genres, whatever you want to write. So that's what I would say. Like, just kind of do your research, read, and also get prepared to sit in solitude and create, and um, not get used to not getting that instant satisfaction from producing something like immediately.
No, like absolutely, Margot. I love what you say about like not always having like, and when we talk about immediate satisfaction, I understand we live in a microwave society now where people feel like they can make things happen overnight. But honestly, if this is what you're really into, is the literary arts, it does take processes and time and growing. And I love when you talked about like being comfortable being alone. Honey, once I left a place that was full of noise, that was not it was not supportive of where I really wanted to go. Initially, out being outside of that noise was different, and it took an adjustment period. But I got so adjusted to it. But that friend now is like, if I'm not going out to speak or work with the community, or I'm here in that quiet
I
space
can't
because I
hear,
love
but
it so
I'm
much.
assuming you're saying something.
Okay, okay, you can't hear me. Hold on, hold on. What about now? Can you hear? Can you hear now? Hello, Margot? I'm guessing it might be on her end because it's showing audio on this end. Can you hear me, Margot? Okay. So we're gonna finish this up because I don't know. I think the audio is going now. But I was saying that simply, once I was able to get into that quiet space, I enjoyed it. I have enjoyed it so much that sometimes I have to make myself actually leave that quiet space. So I agree with what Margot talks about, especially in the creative space, of learning how to be okay with learning how to be okay with being in that space. I think that the other component of that is also that you have to know exactly what you are being called and compelled to do, because nothing else is going to satisfy you. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. If that thing is what you're called to do, especially working in the arts community, literary arts community, at some point it is going to manifest itself into your life. It is going to be present in your life. It is going to be necessary for you to use that gift in your life. And so, hold on, we have Margot back here. I think that it's also important for you to be able to decide what is going to be best for you. And can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. And sometimes the key to it is that actually other people won't understand until they are further down the road. And I think we hear those stories all the time where people say, well, at first nobody was supporting me, but when I got that Oscar, when I got that Emmy, when I got that first check, then everybody responded differently. And so I think that what Margot says about not being afraid to be alone is important. When you know without a doubt that not only are you moving in the right direction, but you're also doing the work needed to bring that dream or that project to life. So I love it. Margot, I want to thank you so much for being the guest today, for your awesome work. I want to share with people once again. Margot hails, her birthplace is right up here in Northeast Louisiana. She hails from the community of Bastrop, was a transplant down to South Louisiana where she still lives. So she is through and through a Louisiana woman with a commitment to impacting and changing the literary landscape in a way where literature will impact the world. And I'm so thankful that she is my sister in writing, my pen bestie, as I and I told her, I say, girl, you are never ever getting away from me. I'm so excited that we are in this space, in this sisterhood together, but and most importantly, started a journey at LSU as just classmates and became such close friends And I'm thankful. I believe that it was indeed ordained by God for us to have this beautiful friendship. And you have an amazing spirit. You offer so much wisdom. And so we don't have any reason for people to be asking, where can you find good literature? Your amazing literary artists come right from this community, right from this state. And so we have to buy their work. Margot has some amazing nonfiction books on Black history, you all.
Yeah.
Neurodivergence. That's one of the amazing things. She digs into these areas that are popular topics, but don't have a lot of literary work to support it. Here it is. Here she
Mhm.
is. Right on Amazon, you can find her works. You can also find the articles she's published. You can visit her website. You can follow her on social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find her, follow her to see what she will be going to next, and really just to follow her journey and the awesome work that she is doing. And so, before we close out, I'm going to turn the mic back over to her to share her social media handles, but also to share what we can expect from her in the future, and then we will get on out of here. Margot, go ahead and close us out.
Oh, thank you. Well, first I want to say thank you so much, Jamie. I love what you're doing. We talk often and we talk about a lot of things, but I love what you're doing. I love what you have done, and I love the things that you are planning to do. Not only for my home community, I haven't been to Monroe and Bashor for so long, and it's been calling me seriously.
It is. I'm working
Um,
on it, friend. I'm working on it. Yes. Yes.
yeah, I just I don't know. It's been calling me lately. And for those who don't know, I think I left Bastrop, oh, when I was 6 or 7. So my memories of Bastrop, I'm sure it's very different. I've been back. I haven't been there since like maybe 10 to 12 years to visit family. My family, a lot of my family is still there. But I say to Jamie, thank you so much for this opportunity. Again, I really admire the things that you have done and what you're doing, the heart that you have for the community, the impact that you've had in the community, and also the genuineness. I think that whenever we talk about people who have a heart for doing the things, not only community wise, but the things that you do as a writer, you have a heart of a writer. You've always been a writer. This is something you do because it's in you, not because someone told you to do it or you want to get the attention. So I always appreciate how genuine you are. I love that about you.
Thank you, friend.
And I just want people to understand who you are as a person and why you go so hard, because it's in you. This is who she is, everybody. Just really a wonderful
Thank
person.
you,
I love,
friend.
love, love everything that you have been doing, the way that you are. I appreciate you and for also putting up with me. Um,
I
so
love you.
again,
You're
appreciate and
awesome.
love you so much for just who you are.
Thank you,
Um,
friend. Thank you.
but I would like to say, I guess, you know, for those of you who are interested, again, I have Hateland on Substack. I write short stories that are spooky. I also provide some history. I did a story about someone in a cafe, and so I talked about Boudin. I'll do some nonfiction articles because I love writing about different things in our community. My most recent, no, the last two I think was in celebration of recognition of um, hoodoo heritage. And in South Louisiana, across the diaspora, that's been a big topic. It's an amazing thing that I didn't grow up hearing that word. That wasn't something we called it. We didn't talk about things that were considered dark or witchcraft, and then understanding that some of the things that we did as far as medicine that we would get um, from the community or herbal, herbal remedies that my grandmother, who is still alive at 94, shout out to Eva B. Johnson. Um, the things that she grew up doing is kind of what they were talking about. And I'm like, oh, that's not really darkness. That's like herbal remedies and things like that. And then so digging into that, so there are some nonfiction things there. Um, I'm working on a lot of things, and hopefully we can sell those things, and then I can come back and talk about these wonderful books in the next book deal that I
Yeah,
have. So I
yeah, yeah.
can
I am hoping and getting some really good feedback on different proposals that I've had with my agents. So we'll see. Publishing is slowing down, the publishing industry. So everybody's going on vacation, including me. Um, and we'll see what happens in January and the spring. But I'm
I
also an
love it.
editor. I edit speculative fiction. So if you have
Awesome editor. Awesome editor.
fantasy, horror, Southern Gothic type of things, or just all around horror, fantasy, or if you just want some advice about how to navigate this from somebody who has worked in on top five um, or at top five publishers or with top five publishers, and also have that experience with acquiring um, traditionally published books, then you can reach out to me. If you Google my name, it'll bring up my Instagram and other things that I've done. And again, I just really am appreciative to be on this space. We can talk all day, and
We
as
really
I get more
could.
comfortable, I
We
talk
could.
more because I know at the beginning I was like, oh, but I loosen up. I can loosen up. So here I am.
We could do this all day, friend, but guess what? We'll stay there for our phone calls. So
Yeah.
I talk to you
Yes,
tomorrow. In the morning.
that's right.
So we look, we have donated enough of our antics to the community. We will save the rest for our
That's right. That's right. So
until
Lola, I
our
hope that.
next, huh?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I hope that this was helpful to people, and I would love to see more stories. We need more authors of color. We need your books. We need your
Yes,
ideas. We need
yes,
your authentic ideas, and we
yes,
love some stories from about Louisiana from people from Louisiana. So
yes,
write, write,
yes,
write. If
yes,
you want
yes,
to
yes,
write, if that's
yes,
what you are called to do, you feel like it's in you
yes.
to do it, then write.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And we look forward to talking with Margot again to hear other great news. In the meantime, you guys, I try to share everything she has out there. I didn't know about HuffPost, so I had to go pull that article up. I have shared her articles, her links, and everything in the comments. So you'll be able to find her there and check out my page as well so you can follow her. And we will be staying in the mix on everything that she has going on. And look, she'll be coming back again, telling us about the great success of the next project she's working on. So stay tuned. We are looking forward
Yeah.
to expanding this journey. Thank you all so
Yeah.
much for tuning in, and thank you, Margot. Everybody have a fantastic day.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.